Hello, everyone. How are you all? Welcome to this Halloween live stream. We've got 16 people already watching. Happy Halloween to you all. Do you like my background? I've actually got like a witch, a rather more shapely and attractive witch than most are. And I thought I would choose her as my background. And anyway, welcome Diego Rivera, genius to the real genius. Welcome Rhiannon Jones. Welcome David Splendid Isolation. And welcome, who's there? Bernie, new comments, okay. And welcome Bernie Tucker. And welcome Della Farron. Hello, my darling Ben. Hello, my darling Della. How are you? Yep, and it's really great to see you all here this evening. I've got no real lead off for this show. It's just basically a Halloween vigil. Now, it's 9 p.m., so all the trick-or-treating kids should be in bed. I haven't actually had any, which I'm really kind of disappointed about, really. I mean, I've even got a packet of biscuits for them. I don't know. Anyway, welcome Martin Taylor, welcome Simon Tucker, and welcome Danny Longfellow. That's a good name. How are you? How are you all? Yes, it's no trick-or-treaters tonight. It was all... it was just... I think a few of them must... I don't know if kids still do that these days. I hope so. It's a good tradition. I mean, there was the warning signs in the shop saying, "Oh, you got to behave yourself" and stuff like that. But how many trick or treating kids really, do something nasty when they're out and about? I just keep a packet of biscuits for them and I hand one over to them. Probably a lot of people, I don't know, maybe people are scared to give the kids biscuits in case, one of the biscuits might have it might be a bit, a day over the sell-by date, and then the parents sue the family that gave them the biscuit. What it's like these days with this nanny state. So yeah, there's probably maybe something like that. But anyway, it's good to see you all there. Well, we'll begin now. I'm going to go through the notice comments because really, what I'd love you to do is share your real life ghost stories and other spooky stories tonight. And if you listen to Third Rail Radio, you'll know that Trevor and we had a really interesting discussion about werewolves. But David Schultz, he's not in chat yet, but this is very interesting. He's got a real life spooky story here. He posted it in the notice. Excuse me. Happy Halloween night 2023, Ben. Here's my spooky story. When I was a young lad in the winter of 1966, I grew up in Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. All right, I've heard of that. It's like it's a kind of like a sort of like seaside resort with lots of like fairground attractions and things like that. It was quite an old one. I used to have freak shows and things like that. Anyway, David continues. It was after a major snowfall. Oh, lovely. Snow. I love snow. Hope we get some this year where I am. It was early evening, and friends and I were playing around in the snow, having a snowball fight in front of the George C. Tilley's Steeplechase Park and Parachute Jump. Oh my God. The Steeplechase Park opened in 1897 and closed in 1964. As we were playing, we experienced a residual audio haunting. All of a sudden, it felt like the Steeplechase Park was alive with people during a summer day, and you could hear people laughing and the rides going on. We became frightened and got the heck out of there. Now, when I think about it, it was just one of the many experiences I've had with hauntings. Right. Well, thanks for that, David. It reminds me a little bit of something that happened to me, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But first of all, Diego Rivera says, "Will you be dressed as the English Bigfoot?" Well, Diego Rivera, does the English Bigfoot look like me? If so, yes. Nothing as it seems says, "I got the proverbial spam folder message for the first time. Perhaps I am special. Certainly not a government operative after all." I believe you, nothing as it seems. I really do. I believe you're not a government operative. I just been to the spam folder and liberated a whole load of messages, a whole row of them, including some by Gary Robinson and people like that. Woody Black says, "Not too scary, Ben, please." All right, I'll see what I can do, Woody Black. But yeah, the thing that happened to me was very strange. Now you may be familiar with this. I have told this story. But anyway, I'll just say hello to a few people who've arrived. First of all, we have here David Schultz is here. Hello, yes. We just told your spooky story, David. We've just said, Leon says they don't want biscuits these days. They want £10 notes or crypto. See how we live in, the little bleeders demanding hash cakes. UFO Nuts, good name. Happy Halloween, Ben. She says, Happy Halloween, UFO Nuts. Gary Robinson, Pride and Dignity. Jam Noise 72, hey Soul Sister, how you doing? Thanks for all your help earlier on. Much appreciate that. Hugo Rune, I've got to have 30 spliffs in my tin. Oh, is that all? Hugo, you may not get through it all. How are you doing? Anyway, it's great to see you all. Great to see you all here. And anyway, yeah, it was a few years ago. I was at the Bases Project, one of their, I think it was their Christmas event at the Black Swan. I remember. Can't remember which one. There's so many, but so they kind of blend into one a little bit. I mean, Michael Shrimpton was there. Doing his talk about the Germans, you name it, it's the Germans. That's Michael Shrimpton's is very simple. He's very simple in that sense. So yeah, I mean, basically, I wonder what he'd make of Sabine Hossenfelder. Yeah, but anyway, I was sitting there listening to him. I was sitting near the front, and I was like struggling to stay awake. I mean, this wasn't because he was boring, because Michael's never boring. I was just in this situation where I was like kind of like drowsy, and when you have these things happen at a conference. You have these things at a conference, and I tend to get drowsy when I'm at a conference. And I was sitting on the front row, and I didn't want them to see me doing this, so I just sort of like just getting drowsy. And then suddenly I found myself in an altered state of consciousness. It really was. It was on this it's happened to me before. I go into this half asleep state. And I then had an experience which is surprisingly similar to Gary, to David Schultz. Hello, Villanora. Hello, Dark Corners UK. How are you all? Hello, Mark One. Welcome. And I suddenly found myself standing at the back of the room. I mean, I was sitting. I don't know if you know the function room at the base of the Black Swan in Devizes. If you've ever been to, you may have seen the videos of it. At one end, Miles had set up his dais and the little stage and the Bases Project stuff and the cameras and the lights. Excuse me. At the other end, as you know, there's the fireplace and things like that. Now, I was at the back of the room, standing by the fireplace, and the fireplace was lit. I could feel its heat on my back. The weather was different too, because there was sunlight coming in through the windows, where previously it had been very, very dark and cloudy. This is December, when we tend not to have much sunny weather. And hello, Best Beds. How do you do? And hello, Johnny Webb. Greetings. And the big dining table had been set up, and it was covered with a white cloth, and there were people sitting around the table. Obviously, they'd just eaten a meal. They had plates of food in front of them, which looked like they'd just been eaten. There was a few scraps left on them, and they had glasses of drink, wine, and things like that where they were by their elbow. And they were just sitting and talking in a sort of cheerful way, like they were having a party. I got the feeling it was something, maybe a wedding reception or something like that. And they didn't notice me. They didn't look at me at all. I could see them. I could hear them. I could also smell their cigarette smoke, because some of the men were smoking. I remember that. And I remember it clearly. It was so clear. One of the women had like a tiara, not a tiara, a headband with glittering red jewels, probably bits of glass, but glittering red jewelry. And I remember thinking, there's something a little bit retro about their look. A bit old-fashioned. The hairstyles, the clothing looked a bit old-fashioned. David knows this story. Yeah, David Splendid Isolation knows this story. And it lasted, I think, probably less than 2 seconds, this experience. I didn't time it, obviously. Hello, DJ B2. But suddenly I was back at where I started from. And I'd woke up, and there was Michael Shrimpton doing his talking away, like that. And a time slip. David says time slip. It was like that. It's similar to what David Schultz was saying. It was a mental time slip. Smoking in a pub is old-fashioned, Chevron. Yes, that's what struck me about it. Of course, you haven't been able to smoke in pubs for about 20 years now. So I went down. So I just thought I'd ask the people about it, because I went downstairs and I asked behind the bar, and they said, "Oh, that room. The room has been used as a function room since the mid-19th century. Before that, it was a base for a traveling magistrate." And then I started looking at some pictures of people at dinner parties at various time periods. And I estimate that the scene I saw in terms of the clothing and the hairstyles, um, estimate sometime it would fit the fashions of maybe 1900 to 1920. So the question is, was I looking? Was I looking at? Had I somehow come across like David Schultz did? I'd come across some vision of the past, something that happened there in that room over 100 years earlier, and I was just seeing it. It was the same room, definitely. It hasn't changed much over the years, and very very interesting little. That was a very interesting thing, wasn't it? A very interesting little thing. Now I haven't got a costume. I should just point out. Let me just. Let me just show you. I did wear a costume. Do you remember my video? Where is it? Do you remember this video? Here we go. Halloween 2020. How many of you remember this? I did wear. I've worn a costume for a couple of years. I didn't wear it this time, but this was my costume in 2020, and I've worn this before. Actually, I've worn this costume before. What do you reckon? That was a Halloween costume. Do you recognise it? Do you recognise that costume? Do you recognise what was I dressed up as? Leon says, "I reckon Ben is psychic." Well, maybe I have psychic moments, Leon. Yeah. Well, who was I dressed? What was I dressed up as there? A witch, wizard? Hmm. What do you reckon? Leon says, "We're still waiting for you to show a photo of you your younger days with hair." Yes, DJ B2. I was David Icke. I thought I'd go along as David Icke. Boris's day off. That's Johnny Webner. I thought I'd go along as David Icke. I've worn my David Icke costume. That was actually at my daughter's house, and yeah, it was. And I've done the David Icke costume several times. I've worn it before. If you read if you ever go to Ben's bookcase, you'll know that look, here I am again. Let me just show you. This isn't for Halloween. This was actually for here we go. This is my fiction blog. Oh come on, let's see if that does that work. No, you can't see it actually very well. But I'll find you a better version of that picture. Hang on a sec. Let me find you a better version of that picture. There's my. Let's have a look. But I have worn that before. Here it is. I wrote this article a long time ago. This article here. Look, I'll show you. This will make you laugh. David Icke has been to visit my house. I was sitting at home this morning doing my usual things and minding my own business, and suddenly there was a mysterious knock at my front door. I stood up and walked to the door and opened it, wondering who it could be. I wasn't expecting any visitors, and to my astonishment and delight, David Icke stood at my doorstep. There he is. He's even got the face makeup. You can see it. You can't actually see it in that other picture. The quality, the resolution was too low. But here you can see the face makeup that my daughter did actually. There we are. Look, there's his beauty spots, you see, and a few more lines under the eyes. I wouldn't have to fake those these days. I couldn't get there. Unfortunately, I had to get like a platinum blonde wig, not a white one. But there's old David Icke at my house. Yeah, and then something strange happened. He began trembling and shaking, and he turned into a lizard. That's one of my comedy. That's one of my little comedy articles from years ago. It's from 2008. So someone asked me if I've seen a ghost. Where is it? Yeah, Rihanna wants me to show a photo of me in my younger days with hair. I'll find one for you. I don't have any electronic ones. They're all. Actually, I'll ask my brother's. Actually, he's digitized the old photo albums from our family. So I'll find one for you. Okay, so I'll find one. It suits you. Oh, blimey. Julian Assange. Good guess. Yeah. Yes, so Eleanor, have I ever seen a ghost? Right. I suppose it's important to define what a ghost is. Yeah, it's important to define that. Yeah. I mean, I suppose a ghost would be described as a spectral figure of some kind, some non-corporeal entity. I mean, what's the definition of a ghost? Here we go. I'll actually Google it. definition of ghost. I mean, a lot of people are probably Googling this tonight because it's Halloween. Dictionary: an apparition of a dead person who is believed to appear or become manifest to the living, typically as a nebulous image. Right. Well, that doesn't. You see, do you know that ghosts can be seen of living people? Jam Noise. Oh, Jam Noise says here, I saw my dad twice and once in a dream. All right. Now, you've told me a lot about your dreams. I know you have some very interesting dreams, Jackie. Yeah. Bernie Tucker. Oh, hi, Seth Aaron Fletcher. I'm very well, thank you. Bernie Tucker says 2 years ago, two of us were working in the wood. Years ago, two of us were working in some woods. A beautiful young somebody spoke to us, dressed in summer clothes with no shoes or socks, and walked off on thorns. ECT was a she, etc. Was a she. All right. A young woman. All right. A ghost is someone with a white sheet covering them, says Danny. I like your picture, your avatar. Only in Scooby Doo, Danny. Now, a ghost. You see, ghosts can be seen of living people as well. This is very interesting. Ghosts. Yes, there's been instances where people have seen what is the equivalent of a ghost. I mean, often they are people who passed away. I mean, people will see a ghost. I mean, a lot of people did. Jam Noise said, "Yeah, your dad. You know, you encounter with your dad. Yeah." Sometimes it's somebody you know or close to, and they suddenly appear in front of you. Sometimes just as an image. Sometimes they look really like they're alive. I mean, if you put your finger on them, maybe your finger would go through them. Some people, often people don't actually try. Yeah, Seth Aaron Fletcher said. Oh, right, they're avoiding your house, the trick or treaters. Right, where is this? Someone said since they see people in their dreams, less than average. Good. I've seen people who've died quite often in their dreams. I recognise your avatar. Have you got a new name, less than average? Hello, Ralph Winter. How do you do? Hmm. Oh, Jam Noise said, where was it? My dad in a dream warned of me being attacked. I saw two men. All right. Oh, good. Were you attacked, Jam Noise? Or did someone actually attack you? I'm sorry if that happened. DJ V2 says, I saw when I visited the Empire State Building observation deck. Oh, it's not far from here. Jimmy Savile big enough to scare anyone off. Hello, Corsitus. How do you do? But you were warned and it saved your life. Right. Hello, the Lightswiller. How do you do? By location, yes, as CG. Yeah. Hello, CCG. Yeah, by location. They Oh, Jam. Oh my goodness me. Oh, I'm sorry, Jam Noise. They attacked your partner. Ghosts can be seen as yes, ghosts they can appear as nebulous or even sort of transparent. Sometimes they appear like the ones I saw, which I'll tell you about. They look like clouds of smoke that kept its shape. Sometimes they can just look like you or me. It's possible we see ghosts all the time and we don't realize it because they look like the rest of us. But ghosts can be seen of living people. I've seen several times. I've seen spectral figures. I was once sitting in a park near where I used to live at 6 o'clock in the bloody morning on a winter's morning. I was actually going. I had a girlfriend. It was actually my first ever girlfriend, and she was into jogging. I was like, how old? I was six. I must have been 16. Or was I 17? I can't remember. 16 or 17. I had my first girlfriend. But she liked jogging. I remember, and she was. Goodness me. I mean, nothing else would get me up that early in the morning. I'll tell you, jogging. And I was waiting for her to turn up, and these horses, these horses appeared out of nowhere, just walking out the park behind me, and they walked out of the gate of the park and down the road. I've done a video about this, and they looked a bit strange, like they were sort of semi-transparent. They didn't have any. There's no one with them, no rider or drover. There's no one driving them or riding them. They had no saddle, bridle, or anything. They just walked off down the road. Yeah. Mm. Very strange. Bernie Tucker says the ghost he saw was dressed like a posh hippie and was not cold. Is there such a thing as a non-posh hippie? But yeah, they often wear strange clothes or out-of-place clothes, sometimes quite old-fashioned clothes. Like, well, I don't think what I saw was a ghost in the pub. I was immersed into some kind of past event. Hmm. Della says, "Did you go jogging together, Ben, in matching shell suits?" Oh, we were 17. I don't think I was. I remember because she was somebody I knew. I met her when I was still at school. I'd left school a few months earlier, and we sort of stayed in touch. Um, we never consummated our relationship. I mean, we were too young for that sort of thing. We just were kind of friendly with each other, I suppose. Diego Rivera says here. So people have left some other comments. I'll try and get back to them. But Diego Rivera's asking a good question. What's the difference between a ghost and a poltergeist? Well, there's several differences. I mean, the poltergeists are tend to what happens in a poltergeist haunting is objects move by themselves. Now that can happen with a ghost, with a normal ghost as well, but they happen much more with poltergeists. The principal difference though between a poltergeist and a ghost is a ghost tends to be associated with a certain place, whereas a poltergeist it tends to be associated with a certain person. And very often, the most common kind of person a poltergeist is associated with is a young girl, a girl in early adolescence, aged about 10 to 12 years old. Well, we do here. Corsitis says, did they do something with CERN and ghosts? I can't remember. Oh, don't get me started on CERN. No. Jamnoy says, you saw your dad after having your daughter. All right. He died a month. Oh, he gave me the thumbs up. He may well have he may well have appeared, Jamnoy, because that was his grandchild, It was his grandchild. Pete 701, hello, welcome. A ghost came into my living room and passed through my hand. You see, they do. They sometimes they're not. Often, even if they look corporeal, you press them and sometimes your hand will go through them. They're just an image, like a hologram. They always appear in clothing. Why don't they appear in their natural birthday suit instead of clothing? Well, maybe some of the streakers at your local baseball match are ghosts, David. Maybe that's not the case. What's interesting is that ghosts often appear in unusual clothing. Sometimes it's old-fashioned old clothing. But I can give you an example of a ghost that actually changes their clothing. They've been seen for many, many centuries, but they change their clothing. Here we are, Lady in Blue. Oxford ghost. Right, so the Lady in Blue. Where is it? Oxford's Ghost Tours. Where is it? The details. The Blue Lady of Temple. No, where is it? The White Lady. No. Okay, I'll have to go by what I remember about this. There's a place in Oxford called the Magic Cafe. No, it's not. No, it's not called the Magic Cafe. It doesn't matter. It's an old cafe. I think maybe the Queen Street cafe. It's Oxford's oldest cafe anyway. It's about 400 or 500 years old. Now, the ghost of a woman has been seen standing outside that cafe, and it's been reported several times now, ever since the cafe started. What's interesting about it, and it's a woman who dresses in blue. Now, what's interesting though about her clothing is that she changes her hairstyle and clothing to suit the fashions of the time she appears in. So in the 18th century, she may well have worn a wig and a crinoline dress. In the 60s, she might have worn a blue miniskirt, things like that. Today, she might wear a blue shell suit or something like that. That's interesting. Where are we? Now, other ghosts I've seen, right. I saw the ghost of I think Trevor's there somewhere. Trevor. Oh, the vicar. Hello, the vicar is here. Good evening. I'll come to confession tomorrow. I think Trevor here. Yeah, Pioneer Spirit. My brother porter, my brother hospital porter, and co-host of the Third Rail Radio is with us. Welcome. Good evening in that Dracula voice. Yeah. Della said, Ben, do you realise that shell suits are not currently in vogue? Della, I'm afraid I don't keep up with. I'm pretty much fashion unconscious. So I don't keep up with these things. I think they were big in the 90s when they David Icke's. I'm a David Icke shell suits. He wore a turquoise shell suit, I remember. Yeah, so whatever the fashion is today, the lady in blue will dress in a typical fashion of today. She may well not be noticed. It's very strange that. This refers, actually, funny enough, maybe there's an association here between romantic relationships and ghosts. I don't know, but I've told the story in 2000 and when did I start dating Sue Stain? 2007. I was it 2000. Oh God, I can't. But surely I remember that. Anyway, it was in November. It was a cold November, and I just started dating Sue Stain. And this made my third or fourth visit to her home near Nottingham. I was on my way back on the train, and I was in at half asleep state, just like I was at the Bases Project. And I was like, I was in that half asleep state, and I was going like that. And suddenly, I just noticed there was a man standing in the. He was standing in the aisle of the train, in the aisle of the cabin on the train, looking at me. And as you know, if you're on a train at night, you'll know that the windows tend to act as a kind of mirror, so they reflect the interior of the cabin. And I was like, I saw his reflection. I was staring straight at the window, and I was staring straight at his reflection. I could see him in my peripheral vision, and my vision was slightly blurred because I was in this half asleep state. But I said he looked like a sort of like middle-aged guy. Get off my train, yes, to see where we live. And the guy on that's from Ghost, the film Ghost. Maybe I'll watch that because it's Halloween. And he was, yeah, he was, and he was just staring at me. And I remember thinking he was wearing this white jacket that looked like a bar steward's jacket. And he was like, just staring at me. And I don't know how long this experience lasted, maybe a few seconds to a minute. And I snapped out of my half asleep state, and he was gone. And when I next went to see Sue, I told her about my experience, and she gasped. And she went upstairs, brought down her photo album. This is something she'd never shown me, I should point out. And she opened it up and showed me a photograph. And yeah, it was Hugo Room and Jam Noise. Please do get a room, will you? And yeah, there was a photograph, an old black and white photograph of a man standing behind a bar, and it was a bar apparently at a hotel on the south coast where he worked, and he was dressed. He was the bar manager, and it was. I said he was wearing this bar steward's jacket, the white ones with the buttons up the front, and he said, "Is this the man you saw?" And I said, "It looks a bit like him. I can't be sure." And she said, "That's my dad. He died in 1998." That was a kind of a thunderclap moment. You expect to hear thunder rolling in the background. Neil Attenbury says, I saw in 1990, I was working at the Kyle of Lochhouse Hotel, and I saw two ghosts. I was on my 10th night shift. Oh, my God. Hugo laughing there. Yeah. Hugo's, I don't know how many spliffs you've had, Hugo. I mean, I only have to have one, and I just can't stop laughing. A lot of people are sharing their ghost experiences, and I will come to that. It's very, very common. I mean, this is really, if I was, what I think might have happened, it's very interesting, because if that was the ghost of Sue's dad, it understands why did I see him? It could be he was following me around. Is it possible? I think it's quite likely that if certain types of ghosts are the etheric remains of people who've died, I think that's a perfectly rational position, and at least for a temporary period, they may well hang around on the earth. It appears it does seem to be temporary. I mean, it's very interesting. Ghosts appear to have a shelf life. There are many ghosts that are seen. There are many ghosts from, for example, 50 or 100 years ago, but there are not many ghosts from 2,000 years ago. It's yeah, it's kind of like a weird. I mean, it could be it's a temporary situation. Ghosts, if for ghosts of the dead, I mean. Yeah. Jamnoy says, "What's that behind you, Ben?" Oh my, oh God! Was there something? Oh, don't tell me something turned up. I have to watch the recording, or maybe Jamnoy is just teasing me. But yeah, maybe, you see, if for example he was the etheric remains of a living person who'd passed away and was in some other state of consciousness, some other state of being, is it possible he had memories of the life that he just ended, the life that ended in 1988, and he had the ability to see into our world, see into the world that he left behind? What would you do if you were in that? If you were a father and you had a daughter living in this world, what would you do? You would be concerned for her welfare. You would probably spend a lot of time watching over her. What, especially the men who are hanging around her. Is it possible that, yeah, he was following me around to see what kind of man I was because I just started dating his daughter. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? I hope I met with his approval. Now, Neil Attenbury makes a good point here. Yes, there's very famous examples of Roman soldiers seen as ghosts. Yeah, there are exceptions. There are some that are more often. There was a famous case. I believe it was in Chester, of the man who saw some Roman soldiers marching through a cellar. That's a very famous one. That appears to be the kind of replay stone tape type ghost, because there's different kinds. What's interesting about that chap is that he actually he added some details that he would have had to know a lot about history to have realized. For example, he said that he describes the what was it, the footwear they were wearing, and the fact that they were actually sleeping on horseback and things like that. That was actually something that was common practice in the Roman army at that time. And yeah, he must have known that. Yeah. Hello, Wayne Model Builder. Hello, Jonathan Carlos. How do you do? Welcome. David Schultz has had another ghost encounter, an elderly person walking down a path when you're a kid. It could be you could be prone to these. I mean, some people are prone to these kinds of experiences. It could be I have a few. Jam Noise appears to have a lot of experiences like this. She's told me about some of them. Yeah. Hmm. There are some highwayman ghosts. Yeah, that's another one. If you read, I tell you what, if you read 40 Times, it's a good thing to read. Because I've actually gone back to reading it after a gap of like about 15 years. The last few years I have been reading it. Yeah. DJ Butio. I'm thinking of the Roman Empire again. Oh, not that again. What's this meme about men thinking about the Roman Empire? Yeah, I mean, I've just bought Helen Dale's book about the Roman Empire. I don't know how many of you actually have seen her on Sargon's channel. I just googled her name. And I thought she was an interesting lady. This Australian journalist, and very wise, I think. And I bought her book about the Roman Empire, and I joked on Sargon's chat on Sargon's comments box. Says, I'm thinking about the Roman Empire again. I don't know where this comes from. I mean, I'm interested in history. A lot of people are, but there's this weird meme that's going around. Oh, men thinking about the Roman Empire. Oh, Rhiannon, the latest FT is out. Great. Oh, check that out. Jam Noise says, did you ever see anything at the hospital? No, but other people did. Hmm. Other people, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I've got to thank Della, actually. Della actually got me back into reading the 40 Times. Right, because it was actually, I went to visit her and David, and she said, oh, have you read FT lately? And I said to her, oh, there's something in it in FT. And I thought, Financial Times? No, I don't read the Financial Times. And then she and David laughed. I don't know if you remember this, Della. It was that time I came to visit you. And she said, no, I mean, Fortean Times. I thought, oh, right, I see. You know, if I'm into ghosts and stuff like this, and I don't know about, and I don't read FT, I'm actually missing out on a lot. And I thought I better start reading it again. Yeah, you remember that, Della? Yeah, it was a few years ago. I mean, it was quite a few number of years ago, and so I started reading FT again. I've been reading it ever since. I've got a friend actually who passes me on their when they finish reading them, they tend to send me their old copies, so I don't buy one. DJ B2. Helen Dale is peculiar. She has her fetishes. Well, she's got into a lot of trouble recently because she's very politically incorrect. But, you know, her contribution on the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, I don't watch every episode, but, you know, when she's on, I do. And the book looks really interesting. I'll probably read that when I go away. Something to keep me occupied on the flight, you know. Someone asked me what's about the hospital, right? Yeah. I've funny enough, you know, people often ask me this: have you seen a ghost at the hospital when you reported? You were there 23 years, and hospitals are probably the most likely place you would see a spectral figure, because it may have something to do with the the pain and suffering that goes on there, the number, most people die in hospitals. I mean, there's a guy called Dr. Mitchell Gibson. I don't know if you remember me talking about Dr. Mitchell Gibson. He was a doctor, and he regularly saw patients that he'd just been working on he'd be doing CPR on, walking down the corridor. Interesting chap. He changed his life. But hospitals are, for that reason, or maybe for other reasons, they are the most likely place you will encounter a spectral figure. But there were. Oh, DJ doesn't like the Lotus Eaters. All right, fair enough. Not everyone does. I do. Crisis apparitions. Yeah, Harianan. Yeah, that's what they appear to be. And but I have heard many stories about them. There's many in the annals of paranormal investigation, and indeed even Nursing Times actually mentioned it once. I used to read Nursing Times when I was, there was nothing else to do on a quiet night. We used to pick up Nursing Times. This is before I started my own hospital portering journal. Oh, Jamnoz, your mum was a nurse, right? That'd be interesting. Sorry, that was DJ. DJ says, I do like it. Oh, sorry. Oh, I do like it. You don't. Apologies. Corrected. Right, yeah, sorry about that. Jam Noise says, I'll ask, your mum was a nurse. Yeah, ask her about that. There was an incident in the one, I remember because I came on night shift one day and everyone's talking about an incident that happened in the clinical decisions unit a couple of hours earlier, maybe about 8 p.m. And they said that what happened was that there was, now clinical decisions unit is just an overflow from A&E, so they can say they're meeting the targets. And they keep patients from A&E that have been there too long. And it's a bit of a trick, really, a bit of a scam. But anyway, there's always two nurses on duty in there. And there's always got to be one there. Sometimes one will go off. And when one was left on her own, she saw a spectral figure in the clinical decisions unit, and she ran out of there screaming. And she didn't, no trouble. I mean, no one, you're never supposed to leave that unit in unattended. There are like 15 beds, and there's always got to be at least one nurse there. But she did. She ran out screaming and left the place unattended. But she didn't get into trouble and she described what she saw, and she just went back, and the thing had gone. The thing had gone. But that's an example, and that's one that I didn't see myself, and I never ever had an encounter myself. Strangely enough, Leon says sometimes Ben speed reads comments. Yes, I do. I get so many of them. It's a lot easier since I've got these glasses, I must say. Now, I did have Diego, what's the most famous ghost in the UK? I don't know. What I'll do is I will Google UK ghosts and see which one comes up first. UK ghost sitcom. No, not that. Not. Right. I don't know. I don't know is the answer. Possibly the ghost at Borley Rectory. Possibly could it be the Enfield poltergeist? I don't know. These are very interesting. These are all very interesting cases. Yeah, Anne Boleyn. Yes, probably. Yeah, that's a good point. Gary Robinson says Anne Boleyn is the most famous ghost. Yeah, probably some of the ghosts at the Tower of London. There's many there, and one of them is the Queen, Anne Boleyn, who was actually the Queen in the 16th century with Henry VIII. And Anne Boleyn, Queen of England. There we are. She was Anne Boleyn was the Queen from 1533 to 1536. She lasted longer than most of them. The second wife of Henry VIII. The circumstances of her marriage and of her execution started the English Reformation. Yeah, she was beheaded. Yeah, Henry VIII beheaded two of his wives. He divorced two of them, beheaded two of them, and one of them survived him. Yeah. So exactly. And people, when people, this is I'm going off topic here. When people say, "Oh, but the royal family, they wouldn't kill Diana. The royal family don't kill people, do they? They're not murderers. They wouldn't stage a car crash and kill her." Well, I'll tell you what. If the Queen Elizabeth II and Charles III have not done these things. They're the first generation of the Windsors who, and indeed any of the royal dynasties of England, who have not. Yes, the royal family have committed crimes, which if any commoner did, they'd all be in jail. They would all be in jail. I do recommend actually Illuminati 3 Murdered by the Monarchy, which is a documentary by Chris Everard. Yeah. Oh, what we got? Yeah, right. So probably that's Anne Boleyn. Yes, Anne Boleyn is sometimes seen wandering around the Tower of London or Hampton Court sometimes as well. And sometimes she's actually holding her severed head in a very gruesome fashion. She's walking along basically with her neck, just truncated neck, holding her severed head in her hands or under her arms. Why are people mentioning Chucky? Chucky is a science fiction novel by John Wyndham that was turned into a very good TV series. I remember. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rhiannon Jones says, a lot of us are the same age as Ben, except Ben won't disclose his age. Well, I find that people in this business tend to be sort of in middle age. I find that people, it seems to be. There are exceptions. There are younger people, and indeed quite a lot of older people. In fact, from I say middle age and up. Some people get into woo-woo stuff earlier, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's. I started out quite early, actually. I was. I remember in the mid-90s, I was talking to Brent Lee about this, actually, of all people, that I sort of got into it in the mid-90s and consumed a lot of material, sort of went active in the late 90s. Hugo Rune. Illuminati. I haven't heard that word for a long time. That's what they want you to think, Hugo. But yeah. So yeah, I'll tell you what. I saw one very interesting ghost story I can tell you is I woke up one morning. I made a video about this too. Jam Noise said something interesting here. Anyone remember The Boy from Space? Yeah, that was a school's program. The Thin Man was really scary, wasn't he? The Thin Man was kind of like it was the first time I encountered what you might call a character which is like the Men in Black. Yeah. Rhiannon says, yeah, I've been into woo since I was 7 years old. My grandfather presented me with a copy of Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. Yeah. Do you know what, Rhiannon? I actually read that book, and indeed, I was a huge fan of the TV series. FT have just been reviewing it, and I've actually watched them all again on YouTube. You can get them all on YouTube. I must have had an interest at an early age, probably about the same as you, 7 or so, because I remember watching that TV series when I was like still a primary school age and really being fascinated by it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not now. I'll tell you about the ghost story. Oh, I just thought of something when it comes to school stories. Remind me to bring up school stories and public information films and ghosts because I probably won't have time to go into detail. But someone remind me to in a minute to bring up the Spiricom and public information films and things. Yeah. There's a. I woke up one morning. Now this would have been in the mid-90s, and I actually managed to film in the very room. I went back to the house where I lived at the time, and I just asked the people who live there now, who didn't know me. I says, I used to live in that room. I used to live in this house. Can I film in your bedroom, please? Can I do it? And I explained why, and they allowed me to do a little video in their bedroom. And people are often very accommodating like that. Like the people who who live in the flat that used to be the Inner Temple in Portsmouth. They were very nice to me as well. But I woke up one morning. It must have been about in the early hours of the morning. It's dark outside in the mid-90s, and I sat up in bed, and I was one of those moments when I was awake straight away, and I had what's been known as a hypnopompic experience. This is where, well, it wasn't actually, because it wasn't a case of my dreams just carrying on when I wake up. I've had those. I've had occasions where I wake up and I can still my dreams are kind of going through my head, and I can still hear things from my dreams. But this was not part of my dream. I just woke up and there was a little boy kneeling on the floor of my room. He was just kneeling there, and he was certainly similar to the horses, although I was more certain at this time than I was with the horses. But he was definitely translucent. I could he was like he was looked like he was made out of smoke that kept its shape, and it's probably like light it up, jam noise. Hugo Rune, light up another one. Yeah, yeah. Keep smoking, Hugo. This is a 20 joint ride, and yeah, and he was translucent. He looked like he was made out of smoke that kept its shape. Now, there was no light in the room because it was just darkness. My eyes were adjusted to the light. There was probably light coming in from the corridor under the door, but I could see him very clearly as if he had some luminosity to him. Although he wasn't, I wouldn't say he was actually lit up. He wasn't actually lit up. I don't trust. I'm just going to just check something out. Hang on, here we go. Just making a note for something later. Hmm. Um, And then he looked like he was wearing some kind of nightgown, those old type nightgowns. Jason Gavis, hello Jason, how you doing? How you doing? Sounds like ectoplasm. Yeah, it was like descriptions I've seen of ectoplasm, although it was less solid than that. And as I was watching him, he had his hands like that, as if he was saying his prayers, and his head was slightly bowed. He looked like he was saying saying prayers, maybe like kneeling on the floor, like people used to sometimes pray before they went to sleep. I do that sometimes, believe it or not. And then he he started rising. He didn't make any sound. There was no voice or other sound coming from him. And he lifted up, as I watched him, he lifted up into the air. He levitated and started to drift away towards the far corner of my room. And as he did so, he turned and looked at me, and our eyes met. I didn't feel anything, no telepathic communication. He just looked at me, and I got the sense he could see me. Maybe I looked to him as he looked to me. Maybe in his world, wherever that is, in his dimension, everything is solid and normal, and people like me look like see-through clouds of smoke. And I remember thinking I didn't feel scared. I just thought, oh wow. I remember thinking, oh wow, blimey. I went back to sleep afterwards. Wow, I thought. That was interesting, but I was wide awake. I was totally wide awake. I can't prove that just wasn't some kind of, hypnopompic illusion, but I was wide awake, and I stayed awake afterwards. I was fully awake, and I remained awake afterwards for at least a number of minutes. I think I got up and went to the loo. All right, let's go on another subject now. Spiricom. How many of you have heard of the Spiricom? And is someone talking to me about 80s public information films that actually made me think of that. Yeah. Right. This is something very interesting. There's a lot of Here we go. Right. There's a lot of material online about this. I could show you a very good summary actually. By going to this channel here. Right. I don't know how many. Right. Just see if I can find it. No. Right. Okay. I'll have to try and find it. I'll have to go through these old videos and see if I can till I find what I've seen. But it's a YouTube channel, The Darkest Secret, and I'm trying to find it because this was a very, very good. It was Psychophonies. Maybe it was Psychophonies. I'm just trying to find a particular video.
Dan thinks wind farms.
Oh dear, she's managed. So there's going to be massive long ads on every single one of them. I don't know if it's worth it actually. I don't think it's worth trying to find the video.
As cigarettes, they're not.
I'm not going to try to find the video. I'm not going to bother because it can take me ages. But I do recommend this. I do recommend this channel. The Darkest Secret. It's like these little 15 to 20 minute videos which go through various ghost videos, ghost pictures, things captured, your paranormal stuff captured, UFOs sometimes, things like that. Oh, I'm not seeing that. The person is not real. Yeah, that's the crazy plane lady again, stuff like that. And it's presented by this woman. She's a Mexican lady, and she's got the sexiest voice you can imagine, man. It's literally, yeah. I'll just play you a snap of her voice. No, I won't play you a snap of her voice because I'll get overexcited. But basically, she's got this really horny voice. Anyway, guys, who's heard of Spiricom? Yeah. I can't find the video, but all right. Spiricom, this guy called Christina Gomez, and that's nudge. I watched Christina. Yeah, I watched Christina. She's great, Christina. She's really cool. She's really cool. Let me just, if I just find the Wikipedia page. It's been fascinating me, the Spiricom. And I can't find this is ridiculous because there's massive amount of, there's loads of like interviews, videos, and stuff like that. Here we go. Where's Spiricom? Right, here we go. Spiricom and Frank's box. This is just on the EVP. It is a form of EVP. Because someone's just rebuilt it. Yeah, this is we have to go back to 1980 for this because a guy called William O'Neill he created this electronic device which he immediately published on he didn't claim a patent on it. He immediately published it in the public domain, and he called it a Spiricom. And he said this was a form of electronic voice phenomenon, and it was designed to receive psychic messages from an old friend of his, a guy called George Muller, who died in 1974. He was a NASA scientist, and he actually did a press conference at the Washington Press Club, the same one where we had like the Citizen hearing and the Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project hearing, and right in the National Press Club. And he claimed he could like hold two-way conversations with spirits with this device. And he teamed up with this guy called George Meek, and they basically put this out as a business. But like I said, they didn't claim any copyright on it. They didn't charge for anything. But if you can find some videos, there's loads of videos and stuff about it. And the reason I brought this up, someone's tried to rebuild it. Someone has like created a new Spiricom, and they've taken the original O'Neill and George Meek plans, which you can still get in the public domain. If you there's a website where you can download the whole thing. Diego Rivera, I'm going to come on to remind me. I'm going to come on to Ouija boards, and he does. There's loads of video demonstrations of it. They're all over the place. Stephen Truthseeker. Now, unfortunately, Stephen and I are not on good terms anymore. But he did actually upload something on his channel, which I'll show you. Here it is. Yeah.
Evidential value.
Okay, this is on Stephen Truthseeker's channel. I don't want to go into details, but I've blocked him. I've blocked Stephen Truthseeker. And this, but yeah, even though I've blocked him, I still watch his channel. Apparently, I'm still subscribed to his channel, because I don't know why that is, because I blocked him. But Spiricom and EVP George Meek. This is an example. I'm not going to play this, but I'll read. Here's the description. About 1982, a way to talk with people from the spirit world, and this is a film. There's lots of films and videos made of him operating this thing, which is the Spiricom. Let me just find you some pictures. Here we go. Spiricom. There we are. There's an example. That is George Meek operating the Spiricom. There's loads of pictures. There it is. See, there's the Spiricom. There's another version of it. And as you can see, there's loads of stuff here. I mean, there's loads of. Look at the videos. So you can always find. You can see I've watched some of these. You can always find loads of Spiricom resources online to learn out more. And how it actually works, I'm not sure. Okay, but now there's a theory going around, and I did believe this for a while, that the whole thing was a hoax. which is strange. I mean, there was no, he never made any real money out of it. I mean, like I said, he published the whole thing in the public domain, never claimed a patent or anything. The two guys, but they found an electrolarynx in his possessions after he died. Are you familiar with an electrolarynx? It's actually a pretty ugly thing. I mean, I would never use one if I was ever in the position where I needed to. But for people who've had laryngectomies, they've had their vocal cords removed. In other words, they can't speak; they can only whisper. There was actually a device. It was like a vibrating machine which you place against your throat. Yeah, Villanora for people with throat cancer. Yeah, you place it against your throat, and it gives you a voice. But the voice is horrible. It's like it's like that. It's a horrible sound. But for some people, they prefer that, because otherwise all you could do is whisper. There's probably more sophisticated ones nowadays, but they did have these like, and it gave you this kind of weird voice. And the reason I remember it, because someone brought up The Boy from Space and how it freaked us out when I was a kid. Do you remember it was like those public information films they used to have? Because I'm from the haunted generation, and I remember one of these horrible public information films was this guy who came on with his electrolarynx, and he said, oh, "This freaked me out. It's terrified me." I was like about 4 years old when I first saw this, and he said, "My name is John, and I have given up smoking. It's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. You must never smoke. If you do smoke, please give up." And I'm like, oh, God, blimey, it's scared the sweet dry living crap. Yes, yeah, that's right. Dr. No, vocal cords. It's funny, you sound like a bad guy in James Bond. Dr. No, vocal cords. Yeah, that's right. And there was the guy in South Park. Do you remember? The guy in South Park, the laryngectomy guy in South Park. Yes. Someone's mentioned South Park. That's right. But they're horrible things. But yeah, but they found one of those in his possession. To be honest, the Spiricom voice sounds just like one of those. And I think possibly it was obviously a part of the system. That was never part of the public. It was never part of like the plans or anything. But some people said, well, obviously he was faking it with this electrolarynx. That I suppose the real situation is, because that maybe that was the method he was using to generate the voice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that voice was coming from somewhere. Some people claim that he was using it secretly, because if you just watch the videos, there's no occasion when when he speaks at the same time as the voice. As if there was some kind of it was just like he was just faking it by putting this thing up using the electrolarynx himself. Yeah, those public information film. Oh yes, the haunted generation. Yes, and yeah, I mean they were always. I mean, to be honest, I think some people just start. I mean, it's so horrifying. I think they had like the opposite effect. I mean, I do remember walking on a railway line and thinking, just almost out of just defiance of the horrible public information film I'd seen about the kid getting run over by a train. And I swear some of the kids, they would start smoking just as an act of because there's these sort of like these scare stories can have like, it can backfire, because they can make you they can make it more likely you'll do the thing they're telling you not to do. I reckon some of the kids who saw that one with the electrolarynx public information film, they said as just to try to reassure themselves, they say, sod this, I'm going to start smoking. Oh, I'm going to go into that electricity substation to get my frisbee back. I'm going to play near that deep pond. I'm going to fly my kite near those overhead power lines. Yeah. Oh dear, the grain farm. I don't remember that one. I don't remember. There was the firework one with the kids with the sunglasses. That was shit your pants scary. That was, God, it was, wasn't it? That was shit your pants scary. Yeah. Anyway, the Spiricom. It's a shame I can't find that video with. Well, it's worth trying to find that video with. Yeah. with the darkest secret. I'll see if I can find a shorter video, which is a bit easier to get hold of. Hang on a sec. Let's see if I can find one, because I'm claiming fair use, of course, on all this, as always. I'm claiming fair use, but just like have a Spiricom. Here we go. It's this like the Spiricom hoax. Okay. That was just some very long one. I wanted something that would last about 10 minutes or so. Yeah, there's some people. There's one here about ITC, an instrumental transcommunication. If you remember that film White Noise was about that, but the Spiricom was audio only, I think. Here we are, Jake talking. I'll play this one. Fife Paranormal. Jake talking about the Spiricom. Here we go. It's only 4 minutes. It doesn't matter if there's an ad on this, because
next thing I want to talk about.
All right, and here we go. I'll just share screen on this, and you can watch this. I'm claiming fair use. Obviously, I'm claiming on this.
Real quick, is not one of my investigations, but it's Spiricom, because I do experiments aside from just investigation. The biggest experiment I've ever done was based on Spiricom. If you've never done research into the Spiricom, I've only got about 3 minutes left. I can't go into it. This is one of the. It's a crime that this isn't a bigger deal in the paranormal. Created in 1979 by George Meek and Bill O'Neill. Going back to the fathers of paranormal, you have Stanley Hergensen, who is known to report the very first EVP in 1957. You have Konstantin Raudive. There were the two big granddaddies of paranormal in terms of EVP.
Konstantin Raudive, I've heard of him, yeah. He's like one of the pioneers of EVP.
Research. They believed that if you want to communicate with spirits, you use frequencies. You don't use white noise. But nowadays, you're taught it's white noise, not frequencies. It's kind of weird how that was shifted. But his idea.
I'm not technical enough to know the difference actually between those two methods.
George Meade, this is actually Bill O'Neill operating the Spiricom device. You use 13 tone frequencies. They are
yeah, that's the picture we saw, which Stephen has on his channel, the video. I think it's a still from the video that Stephen has on his channel.
They are within the human range, because this is a radio. This is a two-way radio. You speak into the microphone. You can hear your voice, but the spirit is supposed to manipulate your voice and the energy of your voice, because they believe, kind of like I believe, everything is made up of energy. And the more energy you present for spirits to use, the likelier they are to communicate with you. So they would use all these contractions, the tone generators right here, and this was the amplifier, this was actually the receivers, and then they had the speaker set up over here, and you could talk to spirit almost like talking on the phone. So they also figured out pretty early on you could maybe communicate with aliens, because you're dealing with frequencies. A lot of people believe that, since this is the same kind of stuff NASA deals with, the possibilities are endless. And then they got to the idea of interdimensional entities, and they kind of went a little crazy with that. But they made contact with a man by the name of Dr. Mueller. Now, this spirit, mind you, these guys, he's from Pennsylvania, George Meade's from around that area. They started talking to this guy named Dr. Mueller. So they're like, okay, cool spirit. He knows a lot. He's actually helping them out. And they started asking him about his life. And it turns out Dr. Mueller, he said he was a scientist, worked for the United States government. So they started doing some research. It turns out there was a Dr. Mueller that worked in the 60s with the United States Department of Defense.
Yeah,
and in his off time, he worked.
That's the person he worked for NASA, and that's the person he was trying to communicate with.
With radios. He worked with music. And they actually tracked down his widow and sent her recordings of the Spiricom, and she verified that is her late husband's voice. And he died in 1969, if I remember right. So
I think it's like this electrolarynx voice. Maybe it's the words he said rather than the actual voice.
About 10 years before their experiments took off. Now, they were asked to come to Washington, D.C. to present for the United States government. They were that popular. They saw the potential, almost like Don Monar was talking about Project Stargate using ESP. They were wondering, could we talk to spirits and they would give us information about, the Russians at the time or the Chinese. So allegedly, the demonstration went really well, to the point where they almost bought the Spiricom off of them to use as an actual government project.
I didn't know that. So there's a connection here to like the remote viewing and psychic spies project. Blimey.
And then, as fate would have it, this gotcha journalist wrote an article because Bill O'Neill, years and years ago, he was in a mental institution, but he was, cleared of any insanity, anything like that. He actually ended up having a successful kids show where he did little sketches. But because of that article, the United States government pulled out its funding. And they had a newsletter they would send around the world, and people stopped subscribing to it. Bill O'Neill ended up becoming very depressed because of this. He ended up becoming a bit of a recluse. George Meek, he ended up passing away. He was an older man, and they ended up giving the Spiricom one of the Mark IVs, the very last one they made in '85, to this girl named Sarah Eastep. And she used it with great success until her passing. And believe it or not, the Spiricom Mark IV, which is the last Spiricom we have intact, is in an aviation museum in Florida, sitting in the gift shop, which is a very strange place for this to end up, but that's the only one we have. So when I did my experiments, it's very easy to find schematics for this. All the frequencies they use, I created what I call the 5-com. Now the reason I call it that is because it's not exactly a Spiricom, but it's close enough. It still uses the frequencies. I have had no success with the spirits over.
Yeah, I saw on a TV documentary, this is why this all got kicked up again. Some guy has rebuilt it. I can never find the video, but it was a demonstration. It was on one of these ghost hunting TV shows where this guy had built the Spiricom from the original plans. He'd used modern equipment. He'd used more modern equipment, but he'd hooked them up to his laptop. But it was still the same thing. It was the basic mechanics were the same. The actual method of noise generation, things like that, and the methods
over the radio. But because the frequencies generate energy, I have had, I guess to say, more spirit box responses when I had the frequencies running than when the frequencies weren't running.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll just look at George. Well, this is Bill O'Neill. Apparently, I think this is a lot of the videos have George Meek operating it. This is Bill O'Neill operating the Spiricom, and this is, I think, the official channel actually. For fuck's sake! Oh, use an ad blocker, Ben. I know. Someone's going to say.
Moment, sir. I said, could you wait a moment, sir?
Very well.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm just adjusting the frequencies.
I see. You're right, very well. By the way, will you?
You can hear the voice, can't you?
Yes, sir.
It's not very distinct, and it's also quite unpleasant. It's an unpleasant sound, but you can hear that voice, can't you? You can hear that voice. But of course, like there's the skeptical side. Do you want to watch the skeptic video on this? Balance. Spiricom. Let's have a look at this. This is on Austin EVP Lab, the Spiricom hoax. Austin Paranormal Research. Right. It's not skeptic. These aren't skeptics then. If they're paranormal research, if they're going to say something like Paranormal Research EVP Lab, they at least have something of an open mind. That's good. Okay, good intro. I like this. Fair use again. I'm claiming on this. There it is. Yep, that's the plans. There's a PDFs of them. I think that Paranormal YouTube channel is actually the official one. I'll go back to that in a minute. That's their official. That's their official social media outlet, I think.
George Meek is an American who in 1971, with William O'Neill, opened a small laboratory to conduct research into electronic voice phenomena. At a seance attended by Meek, a spirit describing himself as a discarnate scientist gave Meek the idea of building a mechanical device that could be used to communicate with the dead.
This is interesting because this idea that a spirit communication through more conventional means, such as mental clairvoyance, then instructs you to create a physical device for an industrial method of spirit communication. That's happened before. This happened with the skull experiment. The whole skull experiment setup, the cameras, the videos, things like that, that all came from spirit communications who told them to do that, to set this thing up, to set up this evidence gathering method. I mean, in a way, this is kind of like heading back to the Amazon Indians, because when Graham Hancock asked them, where did you get this idea for ayahuasca? Because you have this brew made from two plants, which mix together. It only works if you mix them together. And there are like 10,000 species of plants in the Amazon. They said, the spirits instructed us how to do this thousands of years ago. So that's interesting that it was actually spirit instruction, if this is true, of course, that gave Meek and O'Neill this idea.
Meek was a retired engineer and very interested in the subject of survival after death. O'Neill had a spirit guide named Doc Nick, who he said used to be a ham radio operator. Doc Nick suggested the use of certain audio frequencies instead of the white noise used by most researchers when trying for such contact. The spirit guide gave the men technical information for building the communications device and a list of sensitive frequencies that might be used. Meek planned to present this device, called SpiritCom, at a press conference, but did not do so when he found out that only a small number of people had attended. Later, the Spirit informed
he did the press conference at Washington, D.C., didn't he? That was in 1982.
O'Neill that he needed to move on, and the conversations came to an end. Others tried to use SpiritCom.
That's interesting, the idea that the conversations come to an end. Sometimes the spirits who do the communication they themselves will take the initiative to end the process. This happened with Skull. The spirit said, we're going to stop this now, and that's how it ended.
But no one seemed to be able to replicate Bill O'Neill's success. Since the device was not demonstrated before the media, we only have a few recordings of the device being used. These recordings are very suspicious, and I believe they prove the entire affair was a huge hoax. O'Neill was the voice for the so-called spirit coming through by speaking into a microphone and distorting his voice. Let's take a look at the recordings. In the beginning, we can clearly see O'Neill describe the device, but the minute he asks if the spirit is present, the tape is stopped, the camera is repositioned, and now O'Neill's back remains to the camera, disguising his activity.
I bid you welcome. And having heard me out, please try to help. During the interim, are you here, Doctor?
No, I just turned the TV camera on, sir.
What did you say, William?
I said I just turned the TV camera on.
Very well.
All right, so is he using the electrolarynx?
You never know, Doctor.
Yes, I understand, William. All right, now, very well. Now let's get on with this. And what I suggest, William.
We'd have to watch the longer version of this video to find out, so maybe try the one on Stephen's channel, because he's uploaded the entire thing.
Is every disregard to this audio broadcast.
Cough interrupts audio. I've just done that myself.
Exactly. Is every disregard to this audio broadcast. Is every disregard to this audio broadcast. We have Larry Summers too. Well, just tell him that I was not there Easter and that I, well, of course, William, you well, of course, William, you well, of course, William, you know where I was at Easter.
I know.
Well, this is something you wish to hear. You understand, William? You understand, William? You understand, William?
Yeah, I understand.
Oh, the television. Well, all right, sir. Oh, yes. No, sir. Oh, yes. Now I remember what I wanted to ask you about. Copy of the equipment there. Or send me another tape.
Shame the video. He was obviously filming it on VHS, which is probably the only way you could do it in those days. It's a pity it's such poor quality. Or maybe the only tapes that survive have deteriorated.
This video distortion is very typical of the old-style VCRs and indicates that he paused the tape after it was recorded, perhaps to do some editing.
Or send me another tape.
And here's the proof that he rigged up remote control switches to his recordings.
Once again, a due to you and Jeanette and God's love. See, I have a remote switch.
These are just a handful of the many examples of problems with this tape. The remote switch was probably used to activate the microphone when he was speaking as the spirit. For the most part, the spirit and O'Neill never speak at the same time. However, he could have recorded the voice of the spirit and used the remote switch to play it back so that it would be at the same time. Spirit communication is a whole lot easier than this, yet people still insist on finding the most convoluted way to speak to spirits. Look at this example from the skull experiment.
The skull experiment. It's funny you mentioned that, because I did too, didn't I? I think this is from the documentary you can get on there. It's the Afterlife Investigations. It's on YouTube. Very good documentary.
One way that we also communicated with spirit, and which was a very effective way, was by use of an ordinary, very cheap tape recorder whose amplifiers were used by the spirit team to carry on a two-way conversation with us.
We inspected this machine and found it was completely normal. Earlier, its built-in microphone had been removed to eliminate the possibility of recording anything. When the machine, which contained a blank cassette, was activated, witnesses were astonished when they heard this voice asking them a question.
Experimenting with audio.
Yes.
Historic moment it is.
It's at the end. What is right? Yeah, that's well, what do you think about that, guys? Yeah, I don't know. See, I don't know enough about this to call a judgment. There was this other thing I was looking at the other day. It'll be somewhere in my history, but it's like an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half long, and I think it's a bit more open-minded. So I have to look at both sides of this story, because I don't know. I've only really just started looking into this, the whole thing to do with the Spiricom. But there was this old. I don't want to lose this video from my history. But yeah, it looks like an interesting kind of. Here we are. This is the video I'm going to watch. It's I'll watch
started by
later.
psychologists who
I've
had
started
interest
watching
in
it. You can see. I'll watch this later, but this I think may be useful. This is from Purgatory's Place. This is these are mediums, I think, and they're saying the beginning of ITC or a hoax. This is talking about Spiricom. There sort of a question mark: is it a hoax or not? And of course, Spiricom's ITC. It's it's EVP. It's audio. ITC, I think, is. I don't know if there is a difference between ITC and EVP. I mean, I thought ITC meant visual, like the film White Noise. It's a good film if you've not seen that. Here we go. Wasn't Colin Fry caught faking at Skull? I don't know. I mean, Colin was one of many of the various people, mediums that were sent to observe or take part in the Skull experiments. I mean, the Skull experiment. I mean, someone mentioned Leslie Flint. Right. Gary Williams has actually requested that I make a video about Leslie Flint, and I haven't done it yet. But if you know, I interviewed Gary on Panmo Radio, and he was talking about that. He was talking about. I don't know if you know Gary Williams. He's actually he's a sort of like B-movie actor actually in the States, and he sort of does mediumship as well. He's done a few interviews with me. Hello, well, welcome, Jamie. Sega Saturn, how do you do? Oops. Evening, Jamie. Welcome. So, I mean, the thing about the Skull experiment was, I mean, I don't think it was fake. I've actually spoken to a couple of people who were involved in it, really closely involved in it, and I don't think they were faking it. However, technically, it's not watertight. It is not like what you call, psychical research lab. You're foolproof. It's not completely foolproof. It's not pure, Scilab laboratory conditions. So the potential for fraud is there. Now, Jonathan Carlos says here, anyone try those spirit box thingies, Androids, iPhones, that constantly change? Yes, they basically scan the radio dial and they sort of highlight certain sounds, and it's a form of EVP. No, I've not. Now, someone mentioned Ouija boards earlier on. I don't mess with Ouija boards. Before someone actually said you shouldn't mess around with Ouija boards, and I agree. They're not to be taken lightly, and I don't. As you know, I did buy one at the Weird Weekend North, if you remember. It was a very, very nice handmade, hand-painted one, which I haven't used. I don't intend to use unless it can be done properly. And but as you also know, that when I was with Richard Freeman and a few of the other members of the team on the Isle of Man, we did actually carry out a Ouija session to try and channel Jeff. Now, we didn't succeed. We picked up a kind of very gibberish message, but that was really the only time I've. There's also like the spirit thing is like you see, Truth Seekers Northeast. I did spirit board sessions with them. Now, what is a spirit board, you might ask? It essentially is a Ouija board with a different name. Spirit board is a euphemism for a Ouija board. The Ouija, the name Ouija, of course, has these dark connotations, so they just say spirit board. But again, I was with several people. I was with several people who were trained, they were trained mediums who were used to using them. Yeah. So I felt safe to do that at that time. So I can't think of anything else to add right now. Does anyone else want to bring up any other subjects tonight? All right. Anyone? I think we've covered quite a lot tonight, haven't we? Yeah. I sort of can't think of anything. There's all kinds of other ghost stories I could talk about. Oh, there's a new movie for the Borley Rectory. I don't know if you've seen it. But what's it called? I actually got it on Amazon. I won't show it to you because they're thing is about they're bastards when it comes to copyright. Do you remember those clips I showed you of like I showed you clips of just tiny clips of the Silent Night movie, the Christmas movie, and I got a copyright strike. Now I appealed it and won, but it was just really, really annoying. Actually, Borley Rectory. Here we go. Yeah, the Ghosts of Borley Rectory. It's pretty good, actually. It's worth seeing, and you can get it's Oh, you're off. Some people are going to bed. Night, night, Hugo. Night, night. Take it easy. Is Hugo asleep? Yeah, Hugo's probably had about 25 spliffs so far, so he's probably dropping off. Anyway, good night. I'm going to end. I think I'll finish actually pretty soon. I think we've covered an awful lot tonight, and yeah. So yeah. So David Schultz has mentioned some ghost videos here. Yeah. So ghost movies, right? The Sixth Sense. I've seen some of these. I've seen The Shining. I've seen The Sixth Sense. All very good. That's all. But yeah, Sega. I've got a scary one for you, Ben. During the lockdown, my girlfriend was staying around my flat. All the clocks started chiming, and the doors flung open. Oh my goodness me! Your girlfriend. How did she travel to your flat? Was it by taxi or bus or? Did she sort of like turn up and when you asked her, she didn't say anything, but she sort of propped a broomstick up in the corner and said, "Oh, I just forgot to put this down when I was cleaning my house." Did she have like a little pointy hat? Things like that. When she cooked you dinner, did she do it in a cauldron or in a saucepan? Anyway, thank you very much, Hugo. And Vrillon is got to catch up on your Open Uni stuff. Okay. Jason Gavir, is that the one with Julian Sands? Let's have a look. Who's it got on it? No, the cast. Toby Wynn Davis. Yes, it is. Sorry. Julian Sands, Colin Baker, Stephen Smith. Yes, it is with Julian Sands. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Jonathan says, I think a Ouija board may be the only place to hit. Oh, dear. Oh, no. Oh, dear. Now, Richard is alive and well, but as you say here, it's the only place he won't be cancelled. Yeah, poor old Richard. Yeah. I haven't heard from him for a while. I imagine he's busy dealing with the law and solicitors and things. I mean, some of these horrible, I would call them vexatious lawsuits. I think their main purpose is simply to suck up your energy and your time. And this is why they have this outsourced lawfare. That's why they keep suing people. They did this to Alex Jones. It's basically to try and just use up his time and energy and money. And I think they're doing the same for Richard. Though I'm pleased to say that Richard D. Hall has raised. He had like a target figure for his legal fund. He did raise it. People did actually come together and back him up against these bastards at the BBC, because I think the BBC are behind the whole thing. I really do. Anyway, I've done an entire live stream on that. All right. CCG says, I went into the small room once. It was cold. I could hear dripping water, and there was a terrible smell. I'm sure the toilet was haunted. Oh my God, haunted toilets! Stephen Jones did a Weird Weekend North. You remember this because I did review it. That he did a special presentation. It was like 45 minutes, all about haunted toilets. He believes that the presence of large amounts of water can draw ghosts in. Yes, and also it also might have something to do with the nakedness and the weeing and pooing and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I think we'll leave it there. It's been a good live stream. I think we covered an awful lot. I want to say a big thank you to everyone's taken part. David Splendid Isolation, Villan Aura, Jamnoy72, Jonathan Carlos, CCG, Sega Saturn, Jason Gavea. I'll never get through all of you people, never. Nothing as it seems. David Splendid Isolation, Jason Gavea, DJ B2, David Schultz. I think some of you might have left, actually. Their viewing figures have dropped to 42. They went up. They were quite high earlier. They went up to 6. Rhiannon Jones and everyone else. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking part in this. Night, Rhiannon. Thank you very much. Take it. I'll tape to hit the road, David. Take it easy, David. I'll take it easy. All the best. Light Swallow. Thank you very much. You're very, very welcome, Jam Noise and everyone else. My next video will be... I want to try and do another one before I go away to Stairway to the Stars. Once I go to Stairway to the Stars, I'll be quiet. It'll be like when I went to the Isle of Man. I'll be away for I plan to go away for about a week to 10 days. Not sure exactly. And but when I come back, there will be the reportage of Stairway to the Stars, which is going to be I want to make it a masterpiece. Good night, David Splendid Isolation. Night, Gary Robinson. Pride and Dignity to you too. Night, CCG. Dulcis buenos gente. Yes. Nice. Night. You bloody Scotsmen get everywhere, don't you? Bloody Scottish people. Tricky Treaty says nothing as it seems. Yeah. Pride and Dignity to all Jam Noise. Yep. I hope you had a very, very happy Halloween. And I hope you have a peaceful night's sleep without things going bump or anything like that. Unless you like that kind of thing. You may be staying in a haunted house deliberately. I know people who go to Dracula's Castle in Transylvania for Halloween. Some go to Salem in Massachusetts, USA. Some go to deliberately go to haunted houses. DJ B2, live stream when you come back. Yes, I will do another live stream as soon as possible. I will. As soon as I'll squeeze one in before I go. But I will try and do a video before I go, because otherwise that's about 2 weeks without a video, and I don't like doing that. So yeah, night Bungle. Can't see him at the moment. But yeah, thanks very much all of you guys for taking part in this live stream. If you listen to Hapanmo Radio, please tune in on Thursday evening, 8 p.m, because there will be a Halloween special Hapanmo Radio show. It'll be a bit like this one, except I will be playing the audio book of my short story, which is called Ouija. Yes, I've written a short story about Ouija boards, very Halloween-y. If you've not read it, there is a text version on Ben's bookcase. But if not, please tune in and hear the audiobook. Take care, Jonathan Carla. Sweet dreams, DJ B2. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.